use sort of the questions, and we kind of, I don't know what we do. I don't know, but we sum it up. We summarize. We do the Cliff's Notes. I don't know. We just talk. We just shoot the shit. And as per usual, we're on the subject of consort, relationship, sex. I'll answer today. I'm happy to answer some sexual questions to the best of my ability. I got quite a few. I have a wonderful friend who's been, oh, there she is, who's been on my social media for a long time and sent me some questions. And so I'm going to try to answer them. The challenge I'm faced with is what I'm talking about is really higher order practice. I don't think it is, just so you know. I think it's actually a foundational practice. I think it should be taught everywhere at all times, and that really all education should start with how to get free. Anything else is useless. It's like, okay, you're going to show me how to make pottery, but really I want to know how to get free, how to free your mind in any condition. And but the world does not agree with me on this. We are at odds. There are a few people who'd tell you that. But so it's considered, and the spiritual world as well, to be honest. I have very good spiritual keepers. You know, I'm a wild animal that got loose, and and in order to not be shot, I had to agree to be put in a wild animal refuge. And so so there are some spiritual rules I have to follow that I've agreed to, and I do agree to them for purposes of the spiritual keepers who are kind enough, more than kind enough, really the reason that I'm alive. So I don't want to say that lightly, the reason that I'm alive. So I want to follow those ethics in order to be true. And so when we talk about sexual energies, we're brought up in a culture that only knows 0 to 100. I mean, we don't know anything. Well, that only knows 0 to 50. It does not know from 50 to 100. How about that? It climaxes at 50 and then falls asleep and goes into samsara. And so it never actually crosses over a threshold. So when we talk about a membrane, the ultimate membrane really in our culture, and by the way, feel free to send in your questions. The ultimate membrane in this culture is climax. That is considered the be all and the end all. And all of our narrative, our internal narrative, is based on a climax model, including, you know, falling in love is the emotional version of climax, and getting married is sort of the social version of climax in this domain. And, you know, obviously there's physical climax. And so we have a way of thinking of things that there is a buildup. Then from a buildup, there's an expulsion. From the expulsion, there's a dip. From that dip, the dip is into usually what is considered, I don't know, some kind of relaxing experience of falling into something. And then many circles of that. And so to my mind, the primary, if in Zen, the question is, who am I, that you repeatedly ask, one of the primary questions you would ask in Eros is, what is my relationship to climax? And if I learn your relationship to your physical climax, I know everything I need to know about you. Really, it's very, very simple from there. And then that is effectively what you, I don't like the word manipulate, connotatively, but what you effectively manipulate in the same way that you're manipulating things in yoga for a fuller charged response. First, you're stretching and strengthening. You're doing all of these things so that you can activate a fundamental charge. Then once you have that fundamental charge, then what you're doing is you're creating a suppleness so that it can move through your body in a natural way. Once it moves through your body in this natural way, it clears out all of the klesha, it clears out all of the congestion. And then suddenly, lo and behold, you feel free. You feel free. It seems out here, but really it's just from the internal klesha that block your perception. So our relationship to climax is usually, it's the closest we get to any kind of expulsion or relief from the klesha, but what we don't realize is everything everything, all of life happens on that plateau. So most people are not alive their entire lives because they're either building up to and bypassing everything that's happening. Because you know that feeling when you want to get to climax and you don't you don't care. You don't care, really, if you're honest. You are ruthless trying to get to that climax. And then once you get to that climax, then you're tired. You got to go and you're out. And so most of the people spend their lives either building or going out. And what I'm here to say on this planet is that the whole aim is to take that climax moment and extend that and make that the whole of your life. Now, when I say to people, climax makes up the whole of our consciousness, conditioned consciousness, it takes people a very long time to believe me. I just had somebody yesterday who I've known for, I don't know, 12 years, something like that. I don't know, long time we'll say. And we're training. She's in training, and the extension of that experience. And she's shocked. And she said, you always say that climax is a 1 on a scale of, 1 to 10 in this particular philosophy. And she said, I'm just believing you today. And I understand that, that is the nature of the cliche. You don't see how it is operating under the radar, running your consciousness in ways that you don't even begin to conceive until you really get into the relationship. What is your relationship to your climax? And what is your relationship to your partner's climax? That's important to understand. If you take those two relationships, and then you also look at the power of call, which is the signal that issues from a woman, I can tell you the entire samsaric mandala is made up of those three factors. Everything, that's the underpinning of our entire world. And you'll begin to see it once you see your primary relationship. But until then, I try to not talk too much about it because people don't believe me until they believe me. And you don't believe me until you've had the experience, just like, and I use this example of when my yoga teacher said downward facing dog was a relaxation pose. And it was not a relaxation pose. I was going to die. And then years later, I couldn't wait for downward facing dog because it became the pose that I relaxed in. But you could not have told me that probably for 7 years is my guess, something like that. Or you could have told me and I would have thought, oh, that's just one of those things that they say to trick you and to keep you going. And they could just tell me the truth, for God's sake. And so I'm going to do the same with you and just say, look for it and look at it, look for it and look at it. Because my experience is that is the membrane of enlightenment. That is what you're negotiating. Everything of enlightenment is negotiating that membrane. All of it is profoundly interwoven in that place. And everything that we get upset about, I think I've said, I once worked with a sponsor who said, I don't want to be taken advantage of, and I don't want to be made fool of. Well, I can tell you that every time it's going to be climax that does it. Every time you get duped or fooled, it's because you are in the climax sphere and saying, I am available to be fooled for climax. And I don't just mean physically, I mean in every way. But if you are physically, then you are in every other way. It's, what is it? Monkeys up and monkeys down. Monkeys up and monkeys down. So I really I don't think anybody, and by the way, I really want to say this. I am not talking about semen retention. I am absolutely not. I am not talking about semen retention. I am not. That is like Bay Area Buddhism. That is just repress it until the next life. This is not that. This is opening into an expansive enough consciousness that whatever rolls through is not identified with, but always experienced. This is the trick. This is what you're learning to do. You're learning to experience the most profound biological impulse that exists in such a way that you don't identify with it. How do you do that? It's like, it's associated with, getting pregnant, it's associated with falling in love, it's associated with manpower and virility, it's associated with, a woman's attractiveness, all of it is located in there. So that's what you're working with. You're working with your instinctual karma. So climax is the ground that we work on instinctual karma inside of, okay? So I say that because that is the crux of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about working with sexuality. I think people think that I'm talking about like better techniques. I'm not. I'm really not. So what I'm talking about is how to liberate your consciousness from the impulse of climax in such a way that it is available to become pure potential sentience to arise according to the need of times. And that is the one and only way that you become a great lover. If you're looking for my big fancy thing, it is get free and you'll be an amazing lover. And so then how do you get free? Well, you go through the harrowing, and it is harrowing, world of climax. It's just ghastly. Everything is located in there. And so you every time that you believe you're superior, those places, I'm big dominant climaxing person and I make the ladies climax and I get that result, whatever that is that happens, and I'm proud of it, and look at me, all of the stuff that goes with your perspective on that. And then every time you're a slave to something, and that woman lured me and tricked me, or that guy made me fall in love, and what all of that stuff, everything that you're proud of and everything that has ever been done to you is climax based. And so, we can talk about that more if that's not clear to you. Sometimes I say things and they just don't make any sense to anybody. And then you're always welcome to ask more. So when I talk about great sex, it is after you have mastered the climax impulse, too fast, too slow, whatever it is, can't climax, whatever it is, that's what we have. That's where, not we, big we, that's where we have to begin to work, is to really unravel. That is the point in the human body that all klesha attach to. And so we're going to have to begin to tease those out. And so some people, if they climax very quickly, then their practice is to remain in arousal. There's various prescriptions that are given for various locations. And I'm going to suggest, I really do use the 12-step perspective on it. And that is, a tremendous amount of compassion, understanding that most people are powerless in a sense, because actually it's sexual energies that give you power to have choice in the arena of climax. I've almost never met a person who wasn't tortured in one way or another by climax. That's what I'm going to say. When you get down to it. Now, most of you may not talk to people on the subway about their relationship with their climax, but personalities are formed by your relationship with your climax. Your conception of what happiness is formed. If you are identified with your climax, your life is going to be profoundly predictable. You'll just go down climax row. And some women are identified with climax, not in their own body, but in having him hurry up and climax, or whatever it is, or being so sultry that he can't help but climax, all of the things. So you have to begin to unravel this. Well, that's not fun. People used to say to me, don't you get creepy people at one taste? I'd be like, yeah, at the beginning, but after a week, when they discover that what we're doing is unraveling the thing that, is the holy grail of their sexual lives, they are, 1 out of every 100 people are still interested, because everyone's just looking for how to get to climax, how to extend their climax, how to have more climaxes. There's just climax. And then I'm there saying, like, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not remotely what I'm talking about. That is child's play. That is, just being at the mercy of samsara. It's what it is. And so it's also hell. And then, because after you go through kind of disentangling all of these ideas about climax, you are quite possibly going to have some resentment because you were sold a really bad bill of goods. What's that bill of goods, you know? And it's funny because it's so obvious, right? It's like, I feel the same way about marriage, although I believe in marriage for married people who want to be married. That's how I feel about it. But, there is a part where you just have to kind of look at it and be like, okay, that works for a few people really well. And it really does. I'm really happy for them. But for the most part, what a propaganda scam. Like, okay, wait a minute. You have more than 50% failing. Like, that's just a scam. But everyone's kind of like, except it's awesome. And somehow it'll work. It was just my failure. It's like, no, you just are climax addicted, honey. And the same thing is true for sex. It's like nobody is ever going to have a good sex life that ends in climax every time. It's just not going to happen, period. You're not even going to have a sex life if that happens. You want to know why? You won't have any fucking energy. That's why. And not only that, you won't, sorry. I have some feelings today about this climax topic. I'm actually, this is funny. This is actually me a little bit turned on, and a little feisty. But a few of my friends are in really intense practice, and it's just so much fun. There's nothing more beautiful than to watch a woman come into her turn on. There is nothing more beautiful than that. There's nothing, and I don't know. I mean, I've seen a baby being born, but maybe I need to see more or something. I've seen some people die. I've seen the Himalayas. There's nothing more beautiful than watching a woman come into her turn on. There's nothing. It is exquisite. It is unbelievable. And to remember your own experience of that, to remember that feeling of like, wait a minute, it's like this. Wait a minute, I can do this. Wait a minute, I can be happy here. Wait a minute, I feel like I have a superpower. Is it going to go away? It's going to go away. Is it going to go away? No, it's on and it's mine. And then, to watch it begin to expand and to watch her come into understanding her sphere of influence and to watch all of the compensations and pretending and fear that she's a voracious animal and all of the stuff that every single woman has, by the way, climax induced. I just want to say, your voracious appetite is directly proportional to your relationship with climax. Climax keeps you starving. And so all of these things, they're all these compensations. So you begin to open her and then you just begin to see like, wow, and then you get to sympathetically have these experiences of just awe. And, I think, I don't know about other people that, what's his name? Joseph Campbell says it's not meaning that we're looking for. It's the feeling of, wait, how did he put it? I don't know. But he says, it's the feeling of aliveness. That's it. He says, it's not meaning we're looking for. It's the feeling of aliveness. And I would say for me, it's the feeling of awe. That's what moves me. The feeling when I first, we'll just say, did psychedelics and the awe. I was just drenched in awe. And it struck me, I'm living in a drought, like an awe drought. And I stopped believing things were possible. I stopped caring that I believed that. And, I just kept getting more and more in the arid soils. And you don't even realize when you're in those soils, the compensations that you come to believe in just to even get, a drop of water in the soil. And, and then you sell your life for that one drop. And so the experience of getting to watch this, but it can only happen, as I said, on the other side of having begun a conscious relationship with one's climax. Climax is necessarily unconscious. We keep it unconscious. I might even say it is the unconscious. Me and Jung, he hasn't said it, but I'll retroactively give him credit so that a woman isn't just saying it; it's also a guy. And then you'll believe me. I'll be like, oh my God, you'll start telling your friends, you know what Jung said? And then I'll see it on everybody's Facebook post. And I'll be like, wait a minute. Anyway, and I'll be like, Nicole's Facebook, let it go, let go. Anyway, so you necessarily have these blackout spots. We call those climax spots, right? You have these spots where you just boop, go unconscious, boop, go unconscious, and you don't know how it happened. Like you just swore you wanted it to be this, and now it's this. And how were you just right here and you got carried all the way over here? How did that happen? I love this definition. Oh my God, I don't know if I can do this one. What's his name? Anyway, people who know my favorite Theravadan Buddhist book, tell me. Anyway, he says basically his vision of enlightenment is when your intention and your action match. Which I think, in Kabbalah, it's when your head and your heart match. They're very similar ideas. There's a matching that has to happen where your unconscious drives are in relationship with your conscious intention. But that marriage takes a very long time. Your conscious intention can be very bossy and override and just try to dominate and subvert your unconscious drives, and then you just live a life with repression. But boy, when they break out of that jail, you are in trouble, right? So, and then on the other side, you can just have these drives just carry you around like you're on a bowl all the time, and you're just being cast about by karma and cast about by your hungers and yearnings and achings, be it that you're trying to suppress them because you want to be a good person, or that you're, following them and just damned. Whatever. You got to learn how to be in relationship. That's what we're learning, is this relationship with these drives that feel foreign and that we can feel victimized by, and that can feel like they're dictating our lives. And this vision that you've probably been granted, if you're on this Zoom, so you have to have been some moment of recognizing that you're here for a reason. And this vision, likely for most of us, has some kind of origami, like the unfolding idea of what it is. I know that I'm here to be a barker in front of the strip club of sexual energies. I'm here to rewrite our understanding of the Most High, which is sexuality, and give it its proper seat on the planet. That doesn't mean I'll succeed in this lifetime, but I know what I'm here to do. And then I know all of the corollary things I need to do. I needed to write the sutras. I needed to build a group of people who actually could live on the other side of karma, the other side of climax. I needed to get the science on the practice that will bring our understanding forward, because embedded within it are all of the understandings of how to be and work with sexual energies. There's a whole series of things that I had to do, but I had to get that one foundational understanding. So when you're this, then you have these instinctual drives to do this. And I'll be very vulnerable with you all and tell you my primary klesha is fuck it. That is mine. Mine is, I don't want to deal with this. I didn't want to be here. I don't like it. I'm out. That's mine. And then, over here is my my bodhisattva vow that says, I'm in, until every Dharma gate is opened. I'm in for lifetime after lifetime, and until every single sentient being gets free. Those two things can have a kind of a collision. And so I had better make sure that I have a really strong working relationship with these two very distinct desires. And that's an art. That is a true art. But it can't, the game doesn't begin. Your life doesn't begin. Your past doesn't begin until you're on the other side of climax. I mean, if I were a good person in Bay Area Buddhist, I'd be like, it begins right where you are. But, but I don't think it does. I don't think, because I think you have, that's where we have spiritual materialism, and we have ideas about what it is. And you can't even begin to know. You can't even begin to know what it is until you make it to the other side. And everyone has their own dirty little secret around it. I was just talking to a friend of mine. formerly known as my consort, just joking. And I was saying, he was saying he has a really complex relationship with his climax. He probably is thrilled that I just said that publicly, but and I said, you think that's you silly man? That has nothing to do with you. First of all, it's just information in the karmic stream, and you're just choosing to identify with it. And then secondly, that's women. You're picking up call. We are so profoundly freaked out by climax. It's like your climax can get us pregnant. But if I don't climax you, then you're going to go where you can get more climax. And I have I'm financially dependent as a woman, historically. And so I need to make sure that I keep you. So I give you just enough climax to keep you, but then you're dull and dumb from climaxing all the time. And so I really can't stand you. So everything is centered around this climax, and you think that's you. That's the only mistake you make. It has nothing to do with you. Your climax as a man, in my opinion, not very humble opinion, has nothing to do with you, but your choice to identify with it has everything to do with you. So if you're suffering in any way, that's you. That's your choice to identify with things that make you suffer, namely the sense of self, which you get through on the other side of climax. Climax it's sort of like the last, what's it called? The last hurrah, the last frontier, thank you. It's sort of the last frontier of the identity, you know what I mean? That's the final, you're like, I'm willing to let go of this one, And then here's what's so great. When you let go of that one, you have eternal life. Whoa, that sounds very Christian, but in a sense you do, because at that point, that's where you let go of the idea that death exists. And that's where you make it, if anybody's familiar with Tibetan Buddhism, that's what we think is death, is being stuck in Tumo, in the black drop, and then you break through to clear light. Well, as long as you believe in climax, or have a hook into climax, then you're going to end up stuck in that black drop, and that'll be where you go unconscious. And that's the place where we view death as just being permanently anesthetized, and just sort of no more. You don't have to deal with it anymore. That's how most people see death, as far as I can tell. Finally, I don't have to deal with it anymore. It's just some kind of lovely charged blackness, and I get a nap for eternity. But it is nothing like that. And in my opinion, it's actually, a glorious experience shuttling through this mortal coil past all of the endless mandalas of eternity. That's some bomb stuff, into some unknown existence that you wake up inside of right now, which is really how it works. And I think that's great. But you actually can't have that experience until you unhook the hook. I have a shaman friend who does 5 MEO-DMT journeys, and he talks about the fact, that there's 3 kinds of journeys that people go on for, actually. The first is they just white out. They do it, nothing happens. They just, they're out. The second is that they go, but they have these blips, and these black blips where he can't quite reach them. And he said that's really why he's a shaman, is for the people in the black. You don't have to worry about the whiteout people. They don't ever go out. And then the other people who make it to the other side are just like, everything's so beautiful. He doesn't have to worry about them. There's these black drop blip people who can't control their ride, and they blink in consciousness. Then there's the folks who make it to the other side and are just happy to be there. And then there's the ones who are like, oh, thank God, that was a little shuttle home. I'm glad to make it. Let's go out to lunch. And then they, begin to have a great time there. And so that, to my mind, is very similar to our views on death. And DMT is considered the death drug. So I say all that. Now, what am I going to say to you about sex? As far as I can tell, most people are stuck at the climax boundary. So if I were to talk publicly, so what I'm going to say is, if you ever want to talk to me about sex, really secret practice. That would have to happen privately, just because it's not information that anybody who has any attachment to climax can use well. Because if you have an attachment to climax, you have klesha, and those klesha can grab this information and can use it not for purposes of liberating self and others. And that's what I'm down for, and that's what my contract is with them. And so I don't want to violate my contract. Any private questions, I'm happy to answer. Ensuring that you are past the climax barrier and that you are familiar with emptiness. So then what would I do? What would I do to move through this? And I would say the first thing I would do would be to extend your capacity to be in arousal. Climax is the inability to stay in a heightened state of arousal for an extended period of time in a stable way. So climax is not anything pleasurable. It is the checking out or the ending of heightened arousal. Unless you're already on the other side of the boundary, then go to town, do whatever you want to do. Climax, don't climax, you won't care. Well, it's all good. It's all the same. But on this side, you're going to have to extend that capacity. So then how do you do that? If I were giving an assignment and everyone approved of my assignment, I would do everything in my power, especially with women, but I would do this with men too, to throughout the day increase your arousal. I'd have a practice. As I said before, I'm not big on masturbation, but I am big on, because masturbation is usually to rub something out or decrease a sensation. But if you're doing it to specifically bring yourself to an edge and not go over, and then go back into the world and extend that level of arousal into your everyday life, because that's what you're learning to do. You're learning to take the peak state of arousal, and that becomes your baseline consciousness. So I would get there 5 times a day, and by any means necessary. I love using all kinds of fun and flirtations and stuff, and what we call assigned authors, what you make the cause of your particular climax. And that's great, but really all I care about is that you find that state of arousal, that place where you're just trembling, the one you're desperate to rub out, and you're going to start crying more, you're going to start doing things, because when you do that, you're turning up the heat. When you turn up the heat, the karmas arise, and then you're going to feel all kinds of, it's going to be, like a curtain will go up, a veil will go up, and your job, no matter what happens, is to keep that arousal going. So you're stroking, and you're stroking. Oh, it feels good right now in this very minute. It feels lovely. And you're stroking, right that spot, to like get that arousal gate open. And then you're going to just let it spread and open throughout the day. And I would, I'm a kinky girl, and I like sort of like, I would do it in the public bathroom, whatever you need to do to keep it going, because what you're looking for is sustained, especially at heightened states of arousal. Coming down, it is much more expensive, much more difficult to make it back, because all of a sudden you're down there, and now I'm not a Pleiadian or a law of attraction person, but you are in the low vibration thought world when you're out, or you're in the free thought world. You're in the bend karma thought world when you're in arousal. You can do anything. That's where you get that sense of invincibility, because you have access, because you're sentient and you're spread out. You have access to all of the information. And you feel really all-knowing until you crash because, I fell in love and I want to get married, whatever it is. You're just crashed, and then you're like, okay, I didn't want it anyway. And then it's years of pretending you didn't want it, and then you have to work your way back up to arousal. So if you can, stay in arousal. Practice by 5 times a day, minimum. This is what I would do, minimum. You just never let it drop below that level. And we all know the level. Well, not everybody does, but You can guess the level. If you've never had a climax and you don't know the level that I'm talking about, but I'm just going to suggest that there's a bell that goes off that says, if I have one more stroke, I am going, I am out of control. And you can, so as close as you can get to there or there, get there, and then just stay right there. And then the practice would be to, you know, when you, this is not probably the most elegant example, but when they show the images of a nuclear bomb going off, and then it's just concentric circles going out, you're going to let that happen with your arousal. You're going to let it spread out. The primary aim is to begin to distribute what's located, what comes through the body in arousal, which is this enlivening material. So most of us are walking around with primarily deadened cells or breath or whatever it is. And remember, you have in some traditions 8 bodies, in some traditions 9 bodies. And so you're having to get that arousal through all 9 of those bodies. And I would say 10, because I would add an erotic body. And so you're having to get the juice from that arousal into all of those bodies until everything is vibrating. And that's how you get that sense of peace or joy, which is so crazy, right? But how you get it is that the vibration begins to align to the next body, to the next body, to the next body, to the next body. And then all of the bodies are aligned and moving as one. You aren't conflicted. You aren't moving against yourself at that level. But that only happens when the body is just drenched, just saturated in this, in what comes through the arousal, which is this kind of vivifying energy, enlivening energy, electrifying energy, and you begin to notice it. You know, it was so funny. It was so cute when women first start turning on, really turning on. They'll say like, "I think something's wrong. I was shivering, or my teeth were chattering, or these various things." It's like, "Oh no, honey, you're just turning on." So, and because you're just beginning to have electricity run through your system, and you're taking an inert system and making it electric. And so, of course, you're going to notice lots of different kinds of body experiences. Those body experiences are going to be the result of this electricity moving through stagnant areas, and those areas beginning to come alive. I mean, I remember I had this experience. It was so wild. And I thought it was so wild, but there's nothing worse than thinking your experience is profound and wild and having, you know, your kind of teachers be like, yeah. But, you know, I had this experience of like, I had this om from Om Land, we'll say. It had all the ingredients. And then about like an hour later, I felt this like I had to lie down and writhe. And I had to like stretch over here. And then I kind of had to move and something was coming alive in my body, and I had to just move with it. And that was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 hours. And you know, I went, "What's wrong with me?" You know, that's my first question. And then, you know, my second question was like, "Well, what's right with me?" And it was like, "Oh, Nicole, energy is just moving in your body." That's what you discover. All these miracles are really, they're really getting back to nature. They're really what's normal. And walking around with a dead body that isn't normal. You know, so we're, that's what we're doing. Oh, okay. So I'm answering my question. And then because what then happens is, and then you have to work your mind. You have to work both things. So first you're working your basic arousal system, just because you aren't having sex until you're in arousal. It's nothing. What you're having is body bumping. If you want to begin to have sex, it has to be in arousal. And I can tell you, because I've had sex a few times, and I've had the kind of sex that I have a few times with people, and they're just like, "What is that?" No, oh, that's just a liberated body. You aren't doing anything. You aren't thinking anything. This is the way it moves. This is what it does. It is, it's just an electrical live wire that connects to things and either enlivens them or moves as an electrical wire would. That's what it is. And there is no orifice in your body that you can't come from. Everything is an act of coming, including the eyes, the ears, the throat, the mouth, the introitus, the anus. Everything is open for coming, and everything is available to be coming concurrently. And when that happens, that goes just from like a purr to a roar. When that roar happens, you are the electric current itself, and there is no thought, there's nothing. There's just this very, very, very clear white light. That's all it is. And then it comes down into various other expressions. And yeah, that feels good. And so what you're looking to do is increase your capacity to stay in a sustained version of that, no matter where you are, no matter what's happening. And so you're working first just on, can I keep myself at the point where I heard the bell, I'm going to climax and not climax? Can I just stay there? Can I just stay there? That's your first practice. And genuinely, I tease people a lot, but it generally takes years. You're detoxing lifetimes in this area. And there's just, because everything inert is going to seek for inertia. So everything that's dead in you is going to keep going towards being dead. You have one very small power in this life. I think I've talked about the fact that the Buddhist conference, the big debate is if you have free will or not. And they decided you have 1% free will. So use that free will well. You have 1% free will. And so use it to say, stay in arousal no matter what. Whenever you get lost, stay in arousal no matter what. And you will find out you are such a hustler. All of the ways that you make that vow that you're going to stay in arousal no matter what, and all of the ways that you justify that you didn't or don't, oh, but you don't understand. You don't understand. My family, I have to pay the rent. Oh, you don't understand. My husband left me. Oh, you don't understand. I'm sick. I'm sick. You don't understand. I'm having issues with the government. You don't understand. And they're just endless. They're endless woes. And by the way, that's what the klesha eat. They just love those woes. You're just feeding them. Any kind of justification, any kind of deep examination of them that you use, no, just stay in arousal. Just stay in arousal. Just stay in arousal. Figure out how. Okay, so that's the first side, and you really do. You can't have it without the physical side. You just can't. Sorry. So I would have some kind of physical practice. You can have a practice. I always recommend a practice with a partner, but it's also good at this level when you're really working to stay at perma arousal, which most people can't stay in bed with their partner all day. Then you develop a self practice, provided you don't go over. This is not to rub out sensation. And if you go over, you will get spanked. And if you like getting spanked, then you won't get spanked. How's that? Big trouble for you. And then there are all these people, just like the little, I don't know what you call them, cum subs, who are like, oh, I came, am I in trouble? And then you're like, big trouble. And they're like, ooh, I love that. And you're like, okay, what are we going to do here? Anyway, complex, not complex at all. Just learn to stay in arousal. Learn to stay in arousal. Learn to stay in arousal. Do a physical practice to stay in arousal. And then do whatever you need to do. I mean, if you want, I will give you one small procedure, okay? There is a very powerful act when you find your 1 o'clock spot on your clitoris. If your clitoris were a clock, it would be where 1 o'clock is. So you can just imagine you're looking down 1 o'clock. So you're stroking that 1 o'clock spot, but really just stroke whatever gets you to that point, because you're only trying to get to the point and not tip. At first, that's all you're trying to do, right? It's not just not be tipping all day long. So you're trying to get to that point, and then you get there, and then you just stay there for a minute. And then often you can build a circuit, and it's really powerful to build a circuit between your nipple and your clitoris and get that going. If you get that motor going and really get it going, then it increases the intensity of your arousal in such a way that it's just accelerating your work. And it feels good, it feels really great. So when you do that, it's like you're stroking your clitoris from the inside, and then while you're stroking from the outside, and then you can find the exact point of connection. And when you connect those two things, that's where the lights go on. It's profound. I think it's great. And do know, nipples can take more pressure than most people assume. And sometimes you have to increase the pressure to get the circuit. And, most women are so what we call tumesced, buildup of unexpressed sexual energy, usually that has turned to rot in some way. Rot being things like complaint, a feeling of insufficiency, anxiety, upset. And so most people are so tumesced that they can't take much pressure, or they're so tumesced that they can only take heavy pressure. And so you want to vary your spectrums of pressure that you can handle. Okay, that's the physical side. And then the mental side, and this is where Joseph Campbell said, I didn't expect to do a whole talk on climax, where Joseph Campbell said, you're shifting your center of gravity to a zone otherwise unknown. And what I would say is, you're shifting this mental capacity that has strategy, that tries to figure things out, that most importantly and most horribly and most deadly, like this is, I don't know, what's something that's deadly? Agent Orange. This is like the Agent Orange of existence, and that is wanting to be a good person. It is just the killer, because it is such the near enemy that makes you fake. And that makes it impossible to cross the membrane. Fake can't cross over. So all of your stratagem, no matter how interested you are in them, no matter how much you want to examine them, they're useless. They are absolutely useless for the one and only important thing that exists, and that's to make it on the other side of the membrane. When you're on the other side of the membrane, you are free, and then you are free to free others. And that is the human imperative. It is the only thing that will ever bring joy. There is nothing else. There will be people, when I say, what do you want? They'll say, I want to free other people. And they'll be lying to me, because they'll be saying from this side of climax, and they'll have learned the words. But it's okay. I figure it's going in the fascia, at least, or somewhere. And someday they'll accidentally heat up their vagina, and that storm will bring a fire. And oh my God, the only thing that matters is freeing other people after you've been free. That's all there is. So this is what you're going to do. You're shifting your center of gravity to a zone otherwise unknown. What is that zone? That zone is arousal. And so all of this that goes on here, like, do they love me? Do they like me? Do I matter? I'm going to do a musical. Am I a good person? Do they think I did a good job? All of that is because you think you have to earn your way to arousal, which is the ultimate dupe. It's the ultimate trick. It's the samsaric non-arousal trick of the universe, having you think you have to do these things to get this thing, which all of these things block you from. Do you get the punchline? And I'll just say one more, because then you get proud of your capacity to do these things, right? To analyze, to apologize, all of the things that we do to earn our arousal. And so guess what? You can be a bad person. You can be an extraordinarily bad person and get an arousal. Now, you can't be an extraordinarily bad person and stay in arousal, but here's the thing. Arousal changes you. You can't change you. So just quit the shit. Working on yourself is just it's another one of the propaganda machine. You can't work on you. Only something more powerful than you can work on you, and that is the arousal that will come through you and actually organize you in such a way that you're coherent. When you're coherent, you're just going to be clear. When you're clear, there's only one thing to be clear of. That is, the only thing that matters is getting free and freeing others. That's it. That's the only joy that exists. So it's not, nobody will have to tell you, and then nobody will have to tell you what to do to be the person who could do that. Arousal will make you that person. Let it take you, let it shape you. So then the mental part of this is let go, let go, let go, let go. Let go, let go, let go, let go. When you are tumesced, when you are out of arousal, you will want to do so many things. So many things. Take a nap. even. There are so many things you will want to do. And your job is to shovel your way back to arousal. Your job is to make it over this line. Then you can do what you want. See, a nap on this side is 100% different than a nap on this side. There is no condition that matters. The condition that matters is arousal. That's the only thing that matters. From there, what you can do has very different implications, because now what's informing you is a wisdom, as opposed to your dark, stagnant spots. That's usually what's informing you over here. So your job is, and trust me, it's harder than it sounds for some people, apparently. In the same way, people are like, oh no, man, I could totally control my thoughts. And it's like, okay, great, let's go do a sitting meditation, just 7 days. And then just sit and just for 15 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. No, for 10 minutes. No, I'm sorry, just 5 minutes. I'm sorry. Can you have 3 seconds of controlling your thoughts? No, you can't. You can't. That's how it goes. We can't. It's a river. So then what you end up learning is how to let the river flow without identifying it with it. That's all that can happen, because it's all thought forms. What are you going to do? I don't know. So you have 1% free will. Remember, I mean, and I don't know that that's true. That's just what I heard about this from this Buddhist conference. Use that 1% to say, how do I get into arousal? Just that's your work. That is your deep, profound spiritual work. I know that the other work is fancier. I know you want to wear a robe and a sash and stuff. You can get one, but just make your only question, how do I get into arousal? It's going to sound too simple, and you probably will go read books and stuff like that to get something more complex. And then you're going to work all the way. And what you're going to learn is, the question is, how do I stay in arousal? And you're just going to find your way back. Because in arousal, there's no sense of self. And the sense of self is the manufacturer of all problems. So you just get over there and you drop the self off. But you have to remember that sense of self is fighting you when you're in samsara or tumescence, and it's fighting you. That's nice. It's fighting you to get back into arousal, because it's like, oh, I'm gonna die, and it's like, no, I'll take you with me and we'll be happy. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you lied to me again. But it's okay, because it really is happier in the long run. You're doing a good deed for your false sense of self by going over to arousal where it can't function. That's what I have to say on that topic. So yeah, there's 2 things to do. One is increase your arousal in a physical way, get to that state, and then stay in that state. And no matter what happens in your life, you say, how do I get into arousal? That's it. I wish it were more complex. I'd probably be able to sell some programs or something on it, but that's about it. Everything I say, it just really boils down to these very basic things. So I thought I'd say them directly, even though I had a few people say, like, Nicole, are you allowed to talk about these things? I don't know. That's the truth. I don't know. I don't know. Am I going to get kicked out of the culture? Quite likely. Am I going to get kicked out of spiritual circles? Possible. It's all possible. But the thing is, I can't imagine why you wouldn't. That's the thing I don't understand. Maybe you can help me. Like, why wouldn't we talk about these things? Why wouldn't we? Like, don't you want to see everyone you know free? Doesn't it break your heart when you're, you know Tina in Africa, who writes you every 7 days that she has an orphanage and one of her babies is dying? Doesn't that break your heart? Isn't it unbearable to look out and see, and the recent stabbing of the track runner, and what's going to happen to the boy who stabbed him, and the families of those people? I don't know. It just seems like, okay, we could face this every day and get emotionally, psychologically, spiritually exhausted, and we could lose meaning and get cynical, or do these fake outrage fights, or we can actually just do the thing that there is to be done in the most accelerated way on the planet, and that's just to get everybody plugged into arousal, and let the powers that transform people come through their bodies and prepare the body, mind, spirit, and soul for the entry of that much arousal into the being, and then for how to live after you've filled your battery, we'll say. Seems to me like that's the only thing that there is to do. And then you get to have a little bit of fun on the way. I mean, I can tell you this. I don't know if this will be disappointing, but I can tell you, I've done all these exercises. I did so many exercises. And I remember this point, like, because I not only did I lived at this, I don't know what you want to call it, orgasm monastery, and I did hours of practice a day. And, but like, I also had to clean the house. There were other things that I had to do. And I remember just it being midnight and I still had like 2 assignments to go and just being like, I do not want to be doing this anymore, but doing it, I did do it. And that's, I don't know that I'm a particularly gifted spiritual person. According to most spiritual circles, I'm not. But one thing that is true is that no matter what, I'm in the no matter what club. No matter what, I do my practices. I never stop. No matter what the conditions are, I don't stop or miss my practices. And then yeah, I think that's really all I do is I just stay true to my vows. I don't do anything else, but I do that. And that's enough to, I don't know, to keep me in a state of arousal in a pretty radically sustained way. And the thing about being in arousal, everyone knows this. When you are really aroused, for example, in a makeout, that feeling where you can feel everything, right? It's like your partner breathes on you and you feel just the lightness of their breath. You can even hear the slight hiss in their breath, and their leg hair touches you and you feel it on your thigh, or and you're feeling at that level. Your perception is at that level. Imagine if every human being lived at that level of sensitivity. I think we'd be a lot kinder to each other. We'd just be a different species. So in my mind, that's all there is to do. We are doing a summit today, so I have about a half hour if you have any questions.
Yes. Mina asks, I'm interested in how to have the best 1 and 2 relationship. If I'm in the 2 position, are there best ways to initiate and relate with the 1 woman? Then as the woman in the 1 position, how do I relate in full intimacy with a 2, knowing when to pause so they do not go farther into their habits?
How do I initiate a conversation with the 1?
What are the best ways to initiate and relate with the 1 woman?
Well, I'm always a fan of graciousness, and you're in a tricky position. I first want to say that if you're a 2, I've been both a 1 and a 2, so I'll speak from both sides. As a 2, you're in an extraordinarily tricky position because you're starving. And you're all the things that starving people are susceptible to, from tantrums to greed to theft. I say fuck, kill, steal. That's what the number 2 usually wants to do to the number 1. And then they're really sorry because they don't realize number 1's juicing it, and now they're just left with this guy, and who's like, yeah, baby, it's all me. And then you're like, a year later, just with the guy, and you're like, but I thought you said it was all you, and where are we? And anyway, so. But it's complex, and it's humiliating. And my prayer for all 2s is that you have a fairly sophisticated 1 who can remember and have genuine compassion for how humiliating it is, and how there's something inside of you that knows, but the lights are too dark, and so you can't see, or you can't you can't be certain. And you know, and everyone, you just seem like a crazy person, but you know you're not that crazy person. And so you know, hopefully if you're a 2, I mean, you have a sophisticated 1 who has tremendous compassion for all of the awkwardness and the pretending and all of the things that are there, and knows how. In fact, somebody shouldn't be a 1 if they have a sense of self, a strong sense of self, however you want to put it. Period. You just shouldn't. Don't do it. You're asking for trouble. You're asking for karmic wreckage. Don't do it. But if if you find yourself in that situation and you're a 2, then hopefully your person is compassionate and strong. You want a 1 who is strong as hell, because you're saying, I am going to unleash everything that I'm afraid of when I turn up this arousal, and I need somebody who knows how to hold the rails and not let things go crazy, and not buy all of my games that everybody else buys. And by the same token, recognize when it's really me who's hurting. Even though one of my games is to always pretend that I don't know what to do and that I'm helpless and lost, there are very real times inside of a consort experience where you don't know what to do and you really are lost. And that 1 has to be able to sift for the real and the unreal in order to, it's like doing surgery to cut the tumor but not cut you. And that is a very delicate maneuver. So that's just, I really warn against doing it and being a 1 unless you have no sense of self. Just don't do it. Then if you're a 2, just be gracious to the best of your ability. Well, what is gracious? Gracious is honest. It is honest, offering, acknowledging. Honest, offering, acknowledging. And those will probably just be the best that most people can ever do, until you get some electricity in you, until you get full to a certain extent. And so, the hardest part with a 2 is just really having them be honest. Because when you're a 1, you have, like, we'll say, a mother's vision. You can see all of the tricks. You can see it all. You can feel every tug on your man. All those things are happening. So the most gracious thing you can do is to say, I remember I have this great story. I don't know if my friend Bill is here, but I just wanted this woman's man. And I actually really did. Most people don't, but I really did. He had been my boyfriend before he was hers. And I ran into him again. And this woman was so lovely, I decided to tell her the truth. And that was, it was a wrong feeling to have. It was all kinds of things. It was humiliating. It was vulnerable, all of these things. But I just told her the truth. And then we had a certain intimacy around that. But anytime you lie to somebody, you are hating them. You are separating yourself from them. And you're saying that this person is too weak to handle a truth. Or I'm too weak to handle the consequences of their truth. But don't do that. Just go to the deepest depths you can go to. And I understand not everyone has that much facility with their own mind. Sometimes, what else? And what else? When I'm pulling from what else? What else? And then what else? And then what else? And it's like, okay, look, I think you could have gone this far down. Maybe you couldn't go this far down and I can pull more, but you need to go down to the deepest level you can and tell whatever truths you can. The things you're going to be talking about are your fear and your desire, period. And then you're going to share them to whatever extent she wants them. You're going to be, seeing what she wants to feel good. And then you're going to offer it. And that's one of the things that the 2 position is learning. The 2 position is usually consumed by a sense of self. So they hoard. They can't offer because they're scarce. They think there's only so much. And so the thought of just generously offering your desires or your secrets, your under the radar stuff on the first round, making it easy for her, Because you did what? Because you did your arousal exercises and you stayed in arousal so that those things weren't like dried cement down there, they rose up. And so you're going to offer it with as much generosity as you can muster. And again, she's going to understand that it's very difficult because but that's what you're there to learn. So you're going to do it. And yeah, and the truth. And then you're going to do your best. And because this is what you're looking to do is get some kind of abstinence. I don't like that word there. Some kind of freedom from identification with your greed, hatred, and delusion. You know, so everything in you will want to, you know, fuck, kill, and steal her. And by fuck, I mean flatter her, tell her she's so wonderful. And you know, she's just like, no, you just want some milk from the titty. You can just say, I want some milk from the titty, please. That is wonderful. That is such a relief. You don't have to go through all of the show in order to do because she's here to do that, by the way. You know, if I'm a number one, I am here to ensure that somebody gets incrementally fed in such a way that their battery gets fully charged enough that the lights go on, and now they're self-sustaining. That's the whole aim. So you don't have to trick me. I want you to have it. I may not want you to steal it from me. I may not want you, you know, there's a few things I'm not thrilled with, but I understand those as well. But I'm here because my freedom is reliant on your freedom because I experience my life through the world. So you don't have to trick me is what I'm saying if I'm a one. So mostly if you want to be a great two, it's the things you don't do. And then you do a few things, and that's to offer generously as much as possible your arousal. And it's great because you make her your assigned author for your arousal. And then here's the other thing. Just remember, don't move your fixation from him to her. Love what's behind her. Focus on that. She's just getting charged by something behind her. Fall in love with that because she doesn't need you to be in love with her just because you're not in love with her man now. She's here to usher you through the door that she is right past her. Just keep going. Keep going. And then you know what happens? All of a sudden, you get everyone back. All of a sudden, you're free. And then you can walk back and sit next to her. And then you can work the switchboard together. And you can have great fun. But keep going. Otherwise, you're going to end up being a ward for the rest of your life, a foster child. It's just a terrible thing to do. And you'll be miserable because you won't have progressed. And so you'll just end up just interlocking in these same samsaric circles until the end of time. Don't do that. So that's my how to be a good number two is really, I'm trying to think of the things that I like. I don't know. These are just mine, by the way. Somebody else may have their own. Mine are just clean. You know, you came here to get clean, and just act as clean as you possibly can. And we all know how to do that. That's how to be a good number two. I think I gave how to be a good number one, and that's really just you. By then, you have switched your arousal on in a way that it won't turn off. And that is how you live without a basic sense of self, which doesn't mean that you're a vacuum, which doesn't mean you are black drop free, which is like, I'm just absent and that's nothing. No, you still feel everything, you go through everything. I say that because people hear emptiness and they think void. No, it's empty of the sense of self so that you can feel the fullness of everything. That's how it is. And so I would say, prior to arousal, what I thought were emotions were just tiny explosions of klesha inside of me. And, and I would have these really passionate klesha, and I would have these really sad klesha, and I would have these really angry klesha. And I just thought, oh man, I feel so much. No, I'm just klesha so much. But when you go over here, you actually have exquisite sensation. And you actually you really feel a heartbreak. A heartbreak felt is unlike, a heartbreak on the other side, or you really feel, a betrayal, or you really feel when somebody genuinely reaches through the membrane and makes contact in a way that you feel genuine love with them. When prior to that, all you saw were the facade, and you feel that that first moment of contact, or you really feel when a woman is willing to remove the veil and let you see inside of her, and you feel the honor getting to witness those things. All of those things are really profoundly felt. You really feel when I have this friend Margot, and she will send me these really pretty longing pictures. She takes beautiful photos, and like she'll send it, and I'll just really feel, oh, I miss her and Ed, and my heart will hurt in that yearning. The only difference is it doesn't have a tail to it. You really feel every single one of these without a tail, because there's the next feeling to come and the next feeling, and you're inside of them in a very, very profound way. And so that's the beauty of it. And I say that because I get a lot of questions where people, it sounds like implicit in the question is the idea that you will no longer have pain, or implicit in the question is you'll no longer have to deal with this, or you'll be above it, or you'll be out. It isn't that. No, you're just so profoundly in it. You're intimate with every single emotion in every single moment. I think that's good.
Michelle asks, how do you ground arousal so that you can function through the day?
Well, I just was talking to somebody about this one last night. So I don't ground it. I do the exact opposite. It's not that we want too much, it's that we don't want enough, Ram Dass. So what I do is I get to that state of arousal, because there's a way we want to ground it, but really what we want is to be able to function in non-localized arousal. In the same way, like a basketball player doesn't ground the sensation. The basketball player gets into flight and out of the sense of self that feels destabilized by flight, that wants to then ground. So very simple practices, you hit that state, that trigger state of arousal, and you're in it. And then while you're in it, you just can see and sense it moving through all of these membranes. And as it does, they dissolve. And as they dissolve, you feel vast open space. That's the best way I can describe it. That vast open space feels like the air that's in the Himalayas, that feels like high altitude, pristine air, and it's just, and that way, no matter what, you still maintain the arousal, but the arousal's now in such a way that has enough space that it's not blocked in by a membrane, because things hit the membrane, and then that's what causes greed, hatred, and delusion. Whatever is written inside of the membrane will be activated. If you just open the membrane in arousal, you get to keep the arousal, but with enough space, and remember, space is synonymous with wisdom, but with enough space that there isn't that sense of being knocked around by events. And then it's in that space that true genius can arise, because, as I said, you become pure sentience, so you have access to all wisdom. So it's not the membrane only goes as far as intellect. What you got to break the membrane to hit genius, to hit innovative, original thought.
Elizabeth says on Instagram, you said when you get to a certain level, you can begin to bend the karma. Can you speak more on that?
I'll start. Because it's complex practice, but this is what I'll say, is that your capacity to be in arousal is synonymous with, or is, I don't know the word, connected to your ability to open in the face of being influenced, being whatever it is, influenced, manipulated, coerced, duped, all of the things, right? Moved about, all, you feel a slave to eating sugar, whatever it is. So what you do is you learn to stay in arousal. What you do is you let everything go through you, and you don't block it, which is what most people try to do. And then you end up in a terrible place. You don't block it, you don't identify with it, and you don't ignore it. You just let all things continue to go through that river, and you just delight in the fact that you have this river. Now, this is mandatory to enter just into being relationship with karma. Because until then, all y'all seeing are your klesha. It doesn't matter, even if they're the klesha that are painted with, to look like clear light, they're still klesha. So you can't even be in the karma. You can't even read the karma. And so you're at the mercy of everything because you don't really have any idea what's going on. I mean, most people have no idea who even their partner is, what's actually hidden in there, because they don't even have any idea who they are, what's hidden in there. And so you can't even see karmic activity in such a way to get down into it, in such a way to understand how to read it, in such a way as to know how to do projections of potential future outcomes, and then begin to steer those projections for purposes of benefit in the world. That all of those are as one step after the next, but so bending karma would be to, we have huge, I'll just give you an example. We have huge ideological, cultural waves that are wrong. This is just one example. They're wrong, they're dangerous, they're harmful. One of the, I would say in our culture, the biggest one, I'll tell this really funny story that nobody will think is funny but me, because people will think I'm identifying myself in some way. I'm just not. But John McWhorter was on a talk show, and the big PBS debacle had come up. PBS and NPR, there was a congressional hearing, and it came out that they're publicly funded and 100% Democrat. And so these are public media outlets, 100% Democrat. So I'm sure that Republican folks were a little bit like, this is an issue. And so they asked John McWhorter. John McWhorter, I think, is a great thinker, but he's actually a better linguist, but from being a great linguist, has some great thinking and knows how to think. That's what that's all I care about. Do you know how to think? I don't care what you think at all. Not at all. I just want to know how you came up with what you were thinking. That's the only thing that's interesting. So he was being interviewed, and he said he was listening to NPR he said, this is how I feel about it. I was listening to NPR with my kid. He said, I've been listening since 1972. I'm almost sure that's how long he said, 1972. And my family listened to NPR. My life, he said, I still listen to NPR an hour to 2 hours a day. And at the same time, I was concerned about this hearing, and my kid's in the back. And so this had happened. I said to my kid, what do you think? What do you think about this? And what do you think about NPR? And he said, you know what, Dad? The thing about this radio station is that they just seem to say everybody can't. They just can't. And he said, yeah, that's sort of the malady of our time, is we have the malady of believing that people are incapable, and then sending in a mother nation to baby all of these people who are incapable, and really not realizing it's to get control over them, and then rendering them incompetent. So you've effectively rendered an entire generation plus incompetent with this idea that people are incompetent. So this is a radically dangerous belief, and it is ubiquitous. It is, there's virtually no escaping it. Our entire country is based on the idea, for example, that you can't heal yourself. So, big pharma is based on that. The fact that you can't, your body can't tell what to eat. The FDA is based on these things. So any kind of self-determination, which is the only way to empowerment being the ability to see beyond klesha and karma, at the foundation of our culture is negated. So that's a karma inside of our culture. And it is a very, very, very dense karma. A lot of people buy into this, and a lot of people sell this. It's, it's what you trade in the culture. And so how do you begin to turn that tide? Well, this is what I can tell you from the days when I read a Martha Beck book around the days of Oprah. And what she said is, if you have a big ship and you turn it 1 degree, it takes a long time, but it ends up in a totally different place eventually. So you just start turning it eventually, and then you watch for what are called karmic winds. Karmic winds are, so this has been my concern I've been teaching for 30 years. This is primarily what I teach is you can. I mean, it would be that simple. And against the tide of you can't. And there's a lot of money behind that. There's a lot of things. And so you begin to notice karmic winds. So one of the karmic winds would be John McWhorter, a renowned linguist, talking about it. And then you begin to notice, wait a minute, it was picking up so much traction in feminist circles. But then they saw, oh, that descended us down to the level where we lost biological rights, pro-choice rights. And so you begin to see, oh, wait a minute, there's a rise. And then you look for how do you increase positive movement, put power over negative movement, cut through the delusion, and do the activity that would bring about the change. That's really what you're looking to do, all from a center of peace. That's how you change karma. Do one more.
Chelsea Thomas says, can you speak about vanity? I've begun to notice this film-like substance that appears to coat my intentions, and I think it's vanity, but it's so subtle. Mm-hmm. Does it simply take time and arousal to burn off naturally?
Great answer there at the end. Yeah, it just takes time and arousal. I mean, what vanity is unevolved genius. And it's unevolved because it hasn't, so the consciousness has to be moved over fully to the plane of bodhicitta, has to be fully moved over to the plane of determining that the only relief, the only joy, the only desire is to get out of suffering, causes of suffering, help others get out of suffering, or get into arousal, the causes of arousal, and help others get into arousal, however you want to put it. That is the plane you want your consciousness secured to, which is what I was referring to when I said Joseph Campbell's to shift consciousness to his own and otherwise unknown. So once you do that, then what happens is all of your latent gifts, because vanity is the sensing, this is me, by the way, this is my view. Their therapists are going to disagree with me, but it's the latent gifts that you can assume are in here that aren't fully evolved, looking for recognition from the outside to enliven them. And that doesn't work. It's just a crossed wire. So what you have to do is you have to get those latent gifts activated. And then all of a sudden you'll become the genius you secretly know you are. But guess what? They only write you the bodhicitta check if you have taken the vows of bodhicitta. That is the only thing that will activate those genius gifts in you, which is the only thing that will get the relief, which is the thing that's seeking for, but it's just seeking from people, and it needs to be seeking from, we'll say, the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, the Eros, Sattvas, whatever they are. in order to get the activation that you're yearning for. It settles for I try to make this sound as bad as possible. It settles for like a cheap day laborer version of validation from people. And again, this is where that deadly want to do a good job comes in, because you are a slave to anybody you're looking for validation from. You're a slave to anybody you're looking for approval from. You're a slave to anybody you're looking for attention from. And that's just a terrible thing for a Buddha or Bodhisattva to be. So don't be that. Plug in, give all your power to the only thing that will give you power, which is inside of you. You may need a Sherpa to do it, but that Sherpa is never the power. The power is in you. Activate that. Become the one you know is in there. Then you'll be like Hafiz, where instead of being the eyes that are looking for the validation that you're loved, you'll be the eyes that are saying you're loved and you're validated and you're beautiful Buddha. And so you won't have time. You won't have there won't be enough space to see yourself, because you'll be filled with this power and expression. And most importantly, just to start, people say this thing, there's this expression, I was beating myself up, or I felt shameful. There's no there's no self to beat up, is what I want to say. So then it's just some weird form of perverted entertainment that you have a kink for. So in that place where you want to be like, that's just the swing from I did a good job, I deserve the validation and approval and enlightenment, to I did a bad job and I don't do it. So any of these things, like, don't feel guilty or bad or any of those, not because you shouldn't ever feel guilty or bad, but because it makes you an asshole in the long run. It makes you 10 times worse than the thing that you're feeling guilty and bad about, because it has you stay in the rut out of arousal of the only place that would change it. So it's not like you should never feel remorse. I agree with Trungpa. You should feel it for approximately 6 seconds, get the lesson from it, and then change and have your whatever repentance be that I can't decide which religion to talk from, to be that you let the experience guru change you so that you'd never do it again. That is the ultimate reparations, not a bunch of like, I'm sorry, or oh, I'm beating myself up. Don't ever do that. We'll do one more.
One more. B from Instagram says, how do you work with a conduit who feels locked in under responding? I wonder where to draw the line on overspending and reinforcing a kind of consumption, or where to walk away, or when to go harder.
I don't know what happened. What is Instagram? Is it some portal to the people I had been looking for all these years? Who asked such an intelligent question? I love this question. Ask it again, if you would.
How would you work with a conduit who feels locked in under responding? I wonder when to draw the line on overspending and reinforcing a kind of consumption, when to walk away, or when to go harder.
That is such a complex question. So we're going to start here, I think. I mean, if you're working with a conduit, that probably means you're a one. If you're a one, you never walk away. Which doesn't mean you don't, let them have their distance, but you never walk away and you never go harder. You just don't do either one of those. I'll tell you what you do in a second. So just give me a second, because this is extraordinarily complex, and I really want to take great care, because it was such a thoughtful question, and I want everyone in this scenario to win. And so I'm going to start with the conduit, and what I'm going to say is, in our culture, women were raised with overactive emotions and underactive sexuality. And men were raised with overactive sexuality and underactive emotions. And so often, and I don't know if this is true, but often two things are at work. One is he hasn't opened that channel. And I can tell you the best way to open a male's emotional channel, other than to just provide the clarity that you're here, period, is to turn up your arousal. That's the way that it gets heated enough that it can begin to naturally open. And so we usually try to bludgeon somebody into opening, or complain somebody into opening, or educate somebody into opening, or explain somebody into opening. Nothing will work but your arousal. Your arousal with your guidance, and that guidance can be fierce, by the way, and with your guidance, your approval, and your ability to mentalize their experience. You know, what I often say to women when they are unhappy with male emotional capacity is, can you imagine how unhappy they are with your sexual capacity? And imagine that tomorrow you just had to go and be a fully expressed, fully aroused, you know, sexually liberated woman. And if you didn't, you would get scolded, and you know. So we have complementary challenges, and the solution to both of those is arousal, usually starting in the woman's body. That's number one. But number two, I'm going to say this other thing, and that is that women often judge a man's responding according to a woman's emotionality, and men just respond less. It doesn't mean that they don't feel extremely deeply. And so often a woman is looking for validation, approval, and reassurance, affirmation, arousal killers, by the way. So often a woman is looking for those that she is seeking from him what he can't give. It's not his to give. And if he gave it to you 24 hours a day, he couldn't give you enough of it, because the only thing that will solve that is your own arousal. So the first thing I would say is get into arousal, see if he still looks like he's an under responder. If he does, see how much easier it is when you're in arousal for him to respond. And then the second thing is, you know, I can tell you what it's like to be my consort. Lucky, but it's a lot like this. What else? What else? Okay, I understand, but what else? What else is in there? Okay, but how did you feel there? Exactly in that? No, you don't need to explain it to me. How did you feel right there? And it's a lot like, what are those people? Horse driver. On a plane, you know, on the tarmac. Air traffic control. It's like an air traffic control trying to get an emotion to the gate. and you're like, okay, no, that's not a feeling. Okay. And then all of a sudden, though, you're beginning to lay down neural pathways, you know, in the emotional body for somebody, so they can even track that they felt something. You know, and also remember, we're in a climax culture. So most people go from 0 to, I don't know how that happened. And so they have no idea how to have incremental moment by moment by moment tracking of what they're experiencing. And so that's going to take your love, care, arousal, and training. And you have to determine for yourself what you're looking for. That's, you know, each of us has to determine that. I have very strong bottom line, you know, and it's my bottom line. It may not be yours. I mean, mine has to be like, you have to have like a very high sexual quotient, because otherwise we can't get anywhere in my mind. So you have to have a high sexual quotient. You have to have a very strong willingness. And willingness for what? Willingness to do the work to eventually be a person who makes it on the other side of karma, where we're sitting together next to each other at the switchboard. And on the way there are going to be endless, they call women in the red dress, like in the Matrix. And not only am I going to not block them from you, I'm going to pick you up, I'm going to drive you, and I'm going to drop you off in a big center of them and see if you can make it back. That's the real work, right? And so I have standards. The biggest standard is just that you can make it back to me after I kick you, drop kick you into the outer stratosphere. But then, I keep an eye on, wait a minute, am I doing more work than you are? That hurts my karma, that hurts your karma, that hurts everyone's karma. So if it feels like I'm doing more work than you are, then I don't, because I remember I don't ever leave, ever. But I just put another sheath on and another sheath on. I stay no matter what, but I determine if you get into the inner sanctums of my heart or not. No matter what, I will spend the rest of my life for you. That's my agreement. But that doesn't guarantee entry into the inner sanctums. Those are earned. And so then, but those can only be earned. This is the thing. They can really only be earned somewhat when you're on this side of the klesha, with a willingness to keep going. But they can only be earned on the other side, because until then, you're just a nut job. So there you go. So that's the only time that you'll be able to hold me in the same way I'll hold you, which is one of the reasons why I've been so determined to, have people I care about and people I don't care about get free. Because otherwise, you're just the only one at the switchboard, and it's a long shift, and you just want some people to come work the knobs with you, huh, Rach? And so then, so you have to determine if you want more from him than he could possibly give you, and then get him out of his misery if you do, and then. I can tell you, though, my sense is most women want something from a man that he could never give. Most women want him to be like a best girlfriend that can fuck, and that's not ever what he's going to be. If he is a great man, what he will be is somebody who attunes to your highest vision and takes their natural tendency toward productivity and execution and dedicates their life to carrying out that vision that they've connected in you. That is what a great man, in my estimation, is. And so, but he's not gonna be able to turn around and be your girlfriend. And if he's just cuddling and canoodling with you all the time, the way women often want, that's you guys bringing yourselves to the lowest common denominator. It has to be somebody who, for me, really a great man for any woman is somebody who's matched to you. So for me, there is not a breath that I take that isn't dedicated to arousal. There isn't. That's all there is. So it has to be somebody who says, that's my aim, and then makes progressive steps in that direction. But every woman wants something different, and so that's what I would say. Yeah.
We'll move to reflections, starting with Lisa.
Lisa B. Oh, Lisa. Becca. Lisa. We don't know.
We'll move to Becca.
We'll move to Becca.
Okay, cool. Well, ever since we talked last, Nicole, I've had this filter for arousal. I mean, of course, you've been talking about it for a long time, but when you challenged me to make a presentation, I'm like, okay, it's everywhere. And I noticed just that, like I'm doing some heavy writing, and this morning I just got this great idea about where to take it. And so I've been in arousal ever since. And then I just in the creativity and all of that. And then I get on the call, and just from your very first part, it's just like, all these nuggets are just raining down on me. And I'm like, I can't get it captured, because I'm trying to, I take notes. I don't even really go back and look at them, but I just do. It's my way of learning,
Yeah, yeah, I get that. Yeah.
I'm grasping. Guys, just relax. Anyway.
Hey, listen to me. Wait a minute. Because you are a beautiful receiver. And you're actually one of my favorite receivers in the way that you receive and then you give reflection back. So when you in any way discount that in you, then there is a barrier between us because the truth is being blocked.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm hearing that. So I there's so much from today that I could talk about, but this is what I really got. How you started about climax, that question, you know, that the Eros question is not who am I, but what's your relationship to climax? And and that how that brings up that exploration brings up the klesha, or you know, the whole, and you know, which is what we're working I don't want to say working through, but anyway, that's what's next. You know, it's like to just let that come up and keep unraveling it. And I loved how you said, I didn't even get the whole thing, but you said it so beautifully, that working on sexuality is really how to liberate consciousness from the impulse of climax to get free and be available for providing what's needed in the times. You know, it's just like, okay, there it is right there. And freedom, you know, where it's all about being free and actually releasing the self, you know, just to unraveling the self or realizing there's not really a self. And then that's staying in arousal, you know, and all the ways to do that, of course, you know, but also just to note, I'm just trying to notice when I'm in it, you know, and for me, one of the major ways is keeping myself on the edge, you know, like on the edge, like I'm doing this writing. I decided to join a class. So now I have to share it. And I'm always, it puts me on edge, you know, and it's like keep myself in situations where I'm looking over the cliff and scared, not scared, you know, it doesn't even have to be scared, but I am scared. So I'll just admit it, you know, that actually though, is such a beautiful place to be. And actually, you added something else that I saw, that grief is also arousal.
It is.
Yeah. And anyway, that's just so rich to find all these ways that we're in arousal that aren't what I thought. You know, I thought it's just, it just makes, and awe. I mean, that's what I look for too, living in, for moments of awe is, you know. So anyway, I just got so much from today. That's just like, it's just like the little thing where all the locks click, you know, and I'm just so grateful. Thank you.
I hear you. That's what I want you to know is I hear you. And I can, from when I listen to you, what I hear is something definitely has awakened inside of you. And it's been behind these ideas, but you allowed it to be activated in such a way, and it's making its way up, and it's finding the language to describe this new perceptual capacity that you have. And there's a certain what you transmit with it. And this is when I said there's nothing more beautiful than watching a woman turn on, and I include you in as a woman who's turning on. It's just what you transmit is this delight, and it's contagious. Like I want to go back and look at the notes from today's talk because of what you said, because I don't even hear what I'm saying. And then you re-present it. It's like, oh, okay, that's, yeah, I get it. So what I want to make sure I give proper reflection that not only I know you're scared, and by the way, you know, I think you know, fear to me is a turn on. So I don't, you know, but I also know that you're finding courage in the middle of that fear every time you come on, every time you speak, every time you express. And then not only do you have courage, but you have generosity because you have determined that even in your fear of speaking, that you will make a generous offering. And you'll not only make the offering of your experience of the material, but you'll make an offering of your vulnerability in your heart so that we all get to see this naked version of you. And that to me, there is nothing more profound on the planet than that. Nothing. That is the it that we're looking for.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole.
Next, we'll go to to Matthias.
Matthias, oh, there he is.
Being a good person, fuck it. Climax, level 10. 5 times a day. Wait for it.
Okay.
Wait for it.
Okay.
Wait for it.
Okay, that's my business card. Wait till I go to parties. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Hunga.
Hi.
How did I do you, Mama?
It's like I'm always on the edge.
Good. Okay, then I did you great. You're right. You're right on that edge right before.
Yeah, but I torture myself my whole life. I can bring myself to the bell, right before, but I have a very hard time to do this with a partner.
Yeah, most people do.
And I always sort of beat myself up, so
So is that that's a goal of yours?
it was produce.
What? But now it's opening?
Oh, it's just like you can't believe how much that is changing my whole state. And I'm actually tearing up.
Look at you.
It's huge. I mean, this is I think the whole world has this delusion, the whole world. I mean, I get it.
I think so too. Yeah. I mean, well, it's only funny on the other side, but that's the punchline, right? It's just chasing its tail again and again and again and again.
And so why did we get so stuck in climax consciousness? Is it because there's this controlling, so much controlling that's the only little outlet we get? Is there something like that?
I think that, I think there's so many, I could give you cultural reasons. I could give you, it's definitely a control impulse. It depends where you look at it. To my mind, it's a fear of freedom. I think I've talked about, in prisons, they looked at what had recidivism, what had prisoners return to prison again and again and again. It wasn't class, it wasn't ethnicity. There's a whole series of things it wasn't. It was an addiction to routine. That addiction to routine was driven by a fear of freedom, of what to do with wide open space. And so we haven't trained a world of what you would do if you got to wide open space. So even when we touch it, there's a certain kind of terror that sends us back into control. Because fundamentally, it's funny, people think that climax, you're breaking into something, when really what's happening is you're breaking out of it. Climax is the first step down from arousal. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Shit. Everybody's doing the wrong thing,
Yeah. I mean, I think you're like me in this. I think we're similar in that I think both of us listened to the jargon and thought something was wrong with us. And it was like, oh no, we actually knew. And that's the thing that's wrong. And that's the wake up point. Oh wait, and that's where the grief comes in. Everything I've been told, it's wrong. I mean, it's right for samsara, but it's wrong for freedom.
And you know what it is? I think we've all listened to all the messages and we knew it was wrong.
That's right. That's right.
Where's the truth, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what you have to build, is the backbone that can carry the truth that you know.
Yeah.
That's what real practice does, is give you that backbone to carry it, even in the face of the tugs and pulls of karma.
And what practice are you talking about? The practice of arousal?
Yeah. Well, the practice. How about life practice is to be able to carry the truth.
Yes.
all of us can be touched by it, but not many can carry it, and definitely not many of us can carry it in tricky terrains. And arousal, to my mind, has you work out in very difficult terrains so that you can carry it even there. And if you can carry it there, you can carry it everywhere prior. And just, carry it, be true to it.
So one question about arousal. I get it that it's sexual arousal. Literally, you mean sexual. It's not like, spiritual arousal. You're not pussyfooting around. You mean turn on, juicy pussy, erection, this one. But then
Exactly. That's what I mean.
But then the friend before said even grief is a state of arousal. So
Right.
so that sort of, or any strong emotions can be a state of arousal.
So I'm talking to you at this point, and all arousal is sexual arousal. And then it just has different membranes on it. But being in a state of arousal allows you to be inside of the membrane rather than outside of the membrane. Inside of the membrane of grief is a beautiful, rich experience that has no residue. Outside of the membrane of grief is regret, remorse, missing, yearning, aching. And so grief can be a state of arousal or not.
Yes.
Yeah. So I say, learn to steer your sexual energies to stay in arousal no matter what, then everything becomes an expression of arousal.
You got it. So sex, literally. And energy is the foundation of all.
It's the foundation of everything. It's what built the cosmos.
Yes.
Love you, lady.
Next, we'll go to Chelsea Thomas.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, I'm going to try to stay as present as I can while I express this. Okay, so what I
Well,
want to
sit up
share.
straight.
Yes. What I want to share is something I had already expressed to you privately in a DM, but a few years ago on Instagram, you were talking about building a mandala of sufficiency in the world. And these consort talks, I can literally feel it and see it forming around me, through me. Like every time you post a video, it's just like another layer gets built. And then I see it like pouring out into my life and affecting people in my life. And I think that it's just evoking a sense of awe that this is really possible, that we're really doing this, and that, it's amazing. So I want to say thank you. And that's my limit of sobriety.
Look, that's stunning. And exactly what you're saying, that's what I say to my employer regularly. I don't know how at this point in time I get to say these things, and I'm in awe of what's possible. I'm in awe of the fact that the network is being built. I'm in awe that I get to meet you here, that I met this beautiful nurse woman on the land who I saw so much potential in, and then have watched allow the arousal to come inside of her and naturally evolve her into who she is. That's as beautiful as it gets. So we're in this together. That's what I want to say.
Thank you.
And what I had to say to my consort the other day was, and you have to receive my love too.
That's a good point. And I love the AI talks because AI is so with us. And like,
Yeah, I agree.
if it's not, I don't know. Yeah.
You have to have those. I mean, they're where we're going. I agree.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you.
Next, we have a reflection from Joseph Massie. Some things clicked for me as I listened. It didn't sink in before, but the relationship between creativity and arousal is obvious.
Yes.
Can't have one without the other.
Absolutely.
Eros makes more sense to me now as a poet and a human.
That's beautiful. There's I think, Joseph, Rollo May, but he writes about Rollo May and James Hill excuse me, both write about the relationship. It's the foundation of their work between Eros and creativity. Really beautiful thoughts and writing. And yeah, I feel the exact same. I mean, that's why I have erotic artist on my Instagram, but I was going to change it to network programmer. We'll see. But that's exactly, I feel the exact same way. That's where we come together, baby.
And a final reflection, Maria on Insta says, thank you for sharing today so much. It is my first time, and I feel like I am drinking from a well I didn't know I needed. The depth of intimacy with all of life.
Maria, oh, I'm absolutely honored to meet you. Okay, so today is Sunday. We just did our summit, and tomorrow I will be back at 1 o'clock with Omari. How does Monday come so fast? Tomorrow I'll be back with Omari, and we'll be talking AI, psychedelics, social justice, the strange things that we talk about, two people who do not seem like they should be in a room together, who somehow magically click and make each other better humans somehow. So anyway, I love the Omari times. So we'll be back